Hi, my name is Paola. I make videos about albinism for people with albinism so that we can live better with our condition. This is albinism. So today we're talking about sunscreen. Serious moment. When I was a kid, I had so many serious sunburns. Like bad, horrible. I rarely had access to sunscreen. It was actually rarely in the house. And then that was a habit that unfortunately I carried on into adulthood. I would buy sunscreen, more more than I had it as a kid, but kind of here and there, you know? And I now realize that how wildly inappropriate that is. It is definitely my opinion that somebody with albinism should always have access to sunscreen. There's a few reasons for that. One, it definitely gives you confidence and makes you, more tranquila when you go outside. That, and you don't know what situation you're gonna end up in. Some things, unforeseen circumstances can come up. For example, fire drills. How many perfectly avoidable sunburns have I gotten from fire drills? I definitely keep sunscreen in my bag for that reason. So yeah, it should go water, food, sunscreen. But generally speaking, guys, there's too much talk of sunscreen. Watch my other videos. Those things should come first. Sunscreen is your last line of defense. Part of the reason there's so much talk around sunscreen, though, is because it's such a complicated topic. There's so much information, like textbooks full of information on sunscreen. So I'm going to link down below a playlist by Lab Muffin Beauty Science. She is a chemistry PhD and self-proclaimed skincare nerd. And she has a whole playlist just on sun care. If you want to get more technical, I would really recommend that. But I'm just going to tell you what you need to know. So this is how this video is going to go. First, I'm going to tell you what SPF means. I'm going to tell you what you need to know in order to use sunscreen. Then I'm going to tell you the dumbest thing I've ever done. Maybe ever. But there's a lot of competition for that spot, so I don't know. So first, what is SPF? It stands for sun protection factor. It basically means in a specific scenario of sun exposure, if you were to, in that scenario, turn red after, let's say, 15 minutes, then an SPF of 30 would extend that by 30 times. In theory. In theory, that means that if in a specific scenario of sun exposure, if you were to burn in 15 minutes with sunscreen on, with an SPF 30, you should last 7.5 hours without burning. But we all know that that's not how it works in real life. You can kind of think of sunscreen like foundation. So if you've ever worn foundation, then you know that as the day goes on, it wears off. Kind of wears off in some spots and then migrates to other spots, and the oils on your skin kind of break it down with the elements, and it gets rubbed off, and it's just not as evenly coated by the end of the day. Sunscreen is the same way. Add on top of that, some UV filters are photosensitive, so they break down with sunlight. So that leads me into my first big important point when it comes to sunscreen, and that is that you have to reapply every 2 hours. Even more often if you're being active, if you're sweating, if you're taking on and off clothes, if you're moving around, getting it rubbed off. So set an alarm on your phone and be proactive about reapplying. So the second most important thing that I need you to understand about SPF is what SPF to buy. Alright guys, this is how it goes. SPF 15 blocks all but 6.7 of UV. SPF 30 blocks all but 3.3% of UV. SPF 50 blocks all but 2% of UV. SPF 100 blocks all but 1% UV. The most common recommendation that I have seen and heard, like from medical professionals, is SPF 30. But do what you will with that information. As you see, 15 is not a bad SPF. It's not nothing. That being said, there are plenty of options above 30. The third big consideration is that it has to be a broad spectrum. If it isn't broad spectrum, if it doesn't say broad spectrum on the bottle, then that means it only protects against UVB. It only protects against burns. But UVA, which is more associated with aging, is also dangerous. So it has to be broad spectrum. My fourth point is that you have to apply enough. Enough, in the most technical sense, is 2 milligrams per 2 square centimeters. So the surface area of people's skin varies greatly. This recommendation of 1 ounce or 1 shot glass worth for your entire body, if you were wearing a bathing suit, I've seen a lot. For your face, I've seen as high as 1 teaspoon to as low as 1/4 teaspoon. 1/4 teaspoon is probably the most common recommendation that I've seen. I probably use a little bit more than that because I'm a giant woman. A giant woman! Also, like, I'm only 27 and I'm starting to see some wrinkles form. So this isn't a game. This isn't a game. Y'all think this is a game? This ain't no game. Not that there's anything wrong with wrinkles. I'm looking forward to being a wise older woman. But like, I'm wondering, when do people stop calling you young lady? When does that happen? When you're applying sunscreen, remember to be thorough. So the tops of your feet, your whole neck, your ears, take it out to your ears, the back of your arm. Personally, I really like to apply sunscreen in the morning before I put my clothes on. So I'm like in my undies, so I don't risk getting my clothes stained. If I do put on sunscreen and I already have clothes on, like, I'm very like, I make sure it's nice and absorbed, and then I put the clothes right on top, because yeah, it's not a good look having white stains all around the perimeter of your clothes. Give the sunscreen a minute to absorb into your skin and form a continuous layer. Some people actually layer on their sunscreen and find it easier to apply enough that way. Let's say you're gonna put a 1/2 teaspoon, then maybe divide it into 2/4 teaspoons and work 1/4 teaspoon in, and then when that dries down and is absorbed, put the second 4th teaspoon. You're probably also going to avoid missing a spot doing that method. And the 5th most important thing that I want you to keep in mind is to make sure that it is pleasant. I agree with the American Academy of Dermatology Association. The best sunscreen is the sunscreen you're going to wear. Personally, I like chemical sunscreens because they tend to feel more like a normal moisturizer, and I have dry skin, so I like how it applies. It's not as tuggy on the skin. Of course, there's no white cast with chemical sunscreen, but I've also read that with mineral sunscreen, if you have sensitive skin, that you're less likely to have a reaction to mineral sunscreen. Also, if you have oily skin, maybe that chalky feeling is actually kind of nice, because it's gonna make you look matte. Either way, take a minute to just work it into your skin. So my biggest sunscreen mistake, y'all ready to judge me? My biggest sunscreen mistake was making homemade sunscreen. So I used to buy the zinc oxide online, and then I would set up a double boiler, and I'd have a whisk, and I would wear a mask and goggles. The thing is, sunscreen is not a simple product to make, even for big brands like manufacturers. It's hard to evenly disperse the UV filters. I can say from personal experience, like, it is hard. And imagine, like, these brands with industrial machinery find it hard. Imagine me with a whisk. Skin cancer is kind of a big deal, so sunscreen is regulated, and that's part of the reason why sunscreen's kind of costly. There's even been some scandals with brands that had to provide empirical research for them to be approved, like their product to be approved. The advertised SPF was not true. And the reason for that being, our testing methods are actually not very good right now. They could use some improving anyways. I mean, for one, we need to stop using human volunteers. Anyway, yeah, sunscreen is not combining sun protective ingredients in a bottle. It can be kind of complicated, yeah. So don't try it at home. Sunscreen nowadays has become really advanced. Some people really enjoy Korean sunscreens because South Korea is a country that's very forward thinking when it comes to sun care. So some of their formulas are really quite impressive as far as like being pleasant to wear and having high protection. Sunscreen is not toxic at the amount that we put on our skin. The reason I was attracted to homemade sunscreen is because, well, for one, I was a little crunchy granola at the time. Maybe I still am. But also, sunscreen can be kind of costly per ounce. So I have a business idea. Somebody do this. What if you have like a sunscreen marketplace where like every bottle sold is like a bottle donated to somebody who needs sunscreen, like medication? So people with different conditions of photosensitivity, or maybe just specifically people with albinism. And so like people who are low income, or maybe even in other countries where they don't have as much access to sunscreen. And sunscreen, yeah, it can get really costly, especially the good ones that don't like burn your eyeballs. Then everybody can have access to good sunscreen. Yeah, maybe when I'm a big kid, I'll do that business model. Alright guys, thanks so much for watching. I'm thinking about it still, but I think that I'm going to remake my What is Albinism episode, because I feel like that episode in particular should like look really good and be really good. And right now it's kind of cacapipi, so let me improve it, and we'll get back to regular programming as soon as possible. I think after I do that, after Project Redo, I think what I'm gonna do is go into eye health. I just want to cover all the like basic bases first, like so that we can just be like baseline, safe and healthy and functional adults, and then we can talk more about the more subtle, nuanced things when it comes to living with albinism. Y'all, I have so many episode ideas, but if you ever have an episode idea, please drop it down below. I am having so much fun doing this, so yeah, please like, comment, subscribe, do the thing. I'll see you next time. Bye. Why don't you give me your gold love? Why don't you give me no love? Like not in the house at all. Let me let this plane go. Go plane, go. Go.